So recently, like we had a talk. I was in Saudi Arabia. You said that you did research on Dhul-Qarnayn, and
Yeah.
and you created an entire a website of it. And I was visiting I was reading it a lot, and it was a quite a very, and we had a conversation as well, like where the location is and how everything went about. So it was there historian by historical accounts there has been debates that whether it was Cyrus the Great or Alexander the Great or perhaps somebody else.
Yeah.
So can you go on about that?
Yeah. So, well, listen, I want to first preface this discussion by saying that a lot of Muslims are intellectually lazy in doing research. They kind of just say, like, if his identity was important, then it would have been mentioned in the Quran. But, you know, the thing is, they're only looking at the Quran, right? You need to look at texts that came before it. It's fair to say that, sure, some of it got corrupted, but it's not fair to say that all of it got corrupted. Cyrus is mentioned by name in the Old Testament, right? And his achievements are in parallel with Alexander's and vice versa, but because of Hellenistic propaganda, only Alexander's story is told. So you see how, like, the gates of Sogdiana, why is there a dilemma between these two, right? Why, right?
Gates of what?
Gates of Sogdiana. They were both there. Both Alexander and Cyrus went to the same places. They conquered the same kingdoms. You can put you can put a map up of me holding this right now of a side to side map. Like, this is the Persian kingdom, Achaemenid Empire under Cyrus the Great, and then this is the Hellenistic, the Greek Empire from Alexander the Great. It's exactly the fucking same, right? And then you look into Alexander's court historian. He documented Alexander's visits to oracles.
Okay.
All right. Now, in Islam, anything of that sort is just haram. It's shirk automatically. Like fortune tellers, soothsayers, all these kinds of palmistries, all of this is just shirk. He was doing this in like 300 BC by going to these oracles. He went to the Oracle of Siwa in Egypt, and then he went to the Oracle of Delphi in Greece. And he was so arrogant and he believed in it so much that when he went to the Oracle of Delphi before, venturing off into his military campaigns, she said that today is like a forbidden day or something. It's something along those lines, and that she can't do like a reading for him. So he's going to have to come back later. He was so arrogant and incorrigible. He wasn't accepting it. He took her hair, like grabbed her by her hair and like dragged her to the altar where she would do like, all that oracle stuff where they talk to jinns and whatnot. And it's documented that nobody was allowed in to observe this ritual. They just heard what was happening, right? And what are oracles? They're fortune tellers, right? By their own definition, if you look into, classical studies or Hellenistic studies, oracles use what are called daemons, right? And how they describe it, and you'll see a parallel here, is an interdimensional being that communicates with the unseen and the seen. What does that sound like to you?
Yeah, Peer Murshid type of stuff.
Huh?
Peer Murshid type of stuff.
It's a jinn, right?
Yeah, it's a jinn.
Yeah, like, and you think about the perfect tool for espionage is a jinn, bro. It could be sitting right here.
Yeah.
Could be sitting right here, right? And we wouldn't know. He could be logging everything we're saying. We wouldn't know. Right?
Yeah. Perfect tool of espionage. You're actually correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, bro, you look at all the bad stuff Alexander did, and you think about the description in the Quran, how he's mentioned that he was a just, righteous king, right? He was a good person, okay, benevolent, right? Cared for the people, etc. X, Y, Z. The most important thing, they claim that he was a monotheist. Bro, Alexander the Great wanted people to worship him. He deified himself. He used to get drunk constantly, bro. This guy was debaucherous with his pleasurable activities. And it got so bad to a point where he killed one of his closest friends out of just drunken, just belligerence, right? They had an argument. He wasn't taking that because, again, he's arrogant. He's Alexander the Great. What are you going to tell him, right? Right then and there, while they were having a celebration, killed him. And then felt bad afterwards, right? Which is, it's the consequences or the implications of something like that are dire, right? And people are watching you. You look vulnerable as a leader, having killed one of your closest friends in an intoxicated state, right? But you take that into account, right? These are documented events. That automatically disqualifies him from the discussion, right? Of him even being Dhul-Qarnayn.
So why do they even consider Alexander the Great?
This is a good question. This leads to the Talmud.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Tell me about Talmud.
The first thing is
Yeah.
they conflate these two because Alexander deliberately copied Cyrus's achievements. It's known that he read the Cyropedia. He was motivated by it. He knew about Cyrus, and he was a king of bullshit. He claimed to have respected Cyrus explicitly, okay? But then he burnt Persepolis. Persepolis was the capital city of Persia. It was literally the city the guy founded. So you're telling me you have respect for the founder? You burned his city. You burned all of the evidence that he had. So if there is a wall that Cyrus the Great built, Alexander destroyed all the evidence for it because he knew where it was. He went out searching for it, which is why you see the conflation, right? You see Iron Gates of Sogdiana. Both of those guys were there, which is it's on the Iran and Kazakhstan side of the Caspian Sea. It's towards the east of the Caspian Sea. And then the Deryel Gorge, that's also where Cyrus went. There's Achaemenid fortifications from the Achaemenid period when Cyrus was around. But then Alexander also went there. And so it was all like systemic, right? He went there, established his rule there, and claimed, you see, like he had pretty much adopted his achievements, Cyrus's achievements, by doing this. And then he erased Cyrus from history. Now, Cyrus the Great was mentioned again in the Bible. He was an actual benevolent king, okay? He was a monotheist, all right? And he freed the Jewish people, not the Jewish people of today, not the Israelis, the fuckers, okay? The actual Jewish people, all right? And he was a Zoroastrian.
What does that mean?
A Zoroastrian. This is another thing. So Zoroastrians are also mentioned in the Quran. So I don't understand how Muslims can disqualify earlier traditions of monotheism when they're explicitly mentioned in the Quran, right? I'm not saying that the New Testament is the truth. No, the New Testament is false. Anything in the New Testament is false. It's corrupt. It's a corrupted text. Talmud is false. But the Torah and then portions of the Old Testament, well, some of the Torah, sorry, and then portions of the Old Testament, some of the Gathas, which pertain to Zoroastrianism, are true, right? These are, obviously, they're not as well preserved as Islamic truth, because Islamic truth is, one, remembered, two, written down. We have a strong written tradition. They didn't. They transmitted everything orally. So you can imagine how Jesus, when he was alive, and by the way, Jesus didn't write anything when he was alive. Not a single thing. He didn't write anything. You would think if he had a message, a compelling message like I am God, he would write it down, right? But he didn't. because he didn't think he was God. He was preaching the Old Testament. Okay, he passes away. 50 years later, 50 or so years later, the first excerpt of the New Testament is written. So the founder of the faith isn't even there to correct what's wrong. Right? How can we accept that as fact? We can't. But we do know that he was aware of Old Testament teachings, and he may have been correcting people, but he didn't feel the need to write these corrections down, which means that there had to have been some legitimate preserved things from the Quran, or sorry, from these earlier texts of monotheism. So we can't disqualify them, right? Now, the Talmud, and going back to Alexander, why they think that, or why people think, or they conflate these two up.
Before you go there, remember that thought. What are Zoroastrians? What is
Sorry,
Zoroastrian?
Zoroastrians are, look, people confuse their faith as fire worshippers, right? They're not. They don't worship the fire. It's kind of like how we stand and face the Kaaba, like face towards the Qibla, right? And pray towards it.
Yeah.
They kind of do the same thing. And they don't just light a fire and start praying to it. That's not what they do. They have these sources of fires called atashkas. And atashkas they're naturally lit flames. They're from a gas deposit underneath, which, by the way, doesn't stop. You can put it out, it'll keep burning. It'll keep burning. And again, they're not worshiping the fire. It's just an example of God's miracles to them. So they face it and pray to God.
Monotheistic?
Yes, monotheistic, completely monotheistic. Well, the ones that practice like Zoroastrian in its earliest forms.
Okay.
Right? And you'll see a lot of parallels in Zoroastrianism and Islam. And well, actually Abrahamic faiths in general. So Zoroastrianism isn't actually part of Abrahamic faiths. But just because it's not a part of Abrahamic faiths doesn't mean it's not monotheistic, right? It's just a different form of monotheism. It's all honoring the same God. And in the Quran, they're mentioned as Majus.
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 Okay. Majus.
Yeah.
Majus.
They're considered people of the book, right? That message is so important. That goes over almost every Muslim's head, that they are people of the book. You know, Sabians and all these guys, they're people of the book. You can't just be like, oh, we're Muslims, we're going to heaven, they're going to hell. That is arrogance. That is like top-notch arrogance. That just because you think you're Muslim, you're going to heaven, they're going to hell. I'm sorry, that's just, I don't see how that's like logically valid. Right?
So how do they relate to this?
Right. So you're talking about how they mix up Cyrus the Great and right?
And
okay.
the Talmud's involvement.
So in the Talmud, funnily enough, Alexander is venerated. He's seen as a good person.
I see.
He's seen as a benevolent king. The exact description that we have for Dhul-Qarnayn in the Quran, they have for Alexander, but in the Talmud. But this is obviously an issue because the Talmud is a collection of rabbinical interpretations made in 900 AD, compiled in 900 AD. Now, okay, why are people clinging to interpretations of the Quran? Or sorry, of the Torah, right? They should be clinging to the Torah itself. That is free will. You read the Torah, you interpret it, you maybe get some understanding from somebody that has more knowledge than you, but not dismiss your own takes entirely and cling to this one that's, this one ideology that's clearly problematic, where like, Jesus is boiling and burning excrement and like the Virgin Mary was a whore. Like, well, what kind of atrocities? Like, why would you, this is abhorrence, right? No religious text would have this written down in it.
So it's an interpretation of Torah.
Of the Torah, yeah. The Talmud, and it was written in 900 AD. This is what's really important because the Torah is ancient. The Torah is from like 2500 BC. So kahan se 2500 BC, kahan se 900 AD?
So do you think like Was there an alternative intent behind this? Who was involved behind this?
So obviously, like, the intent was to assume control, and I don't think the rabbis that were responsible for compiling these interpretations were, you know, purely altruistic and they had other monotheistic traditions in mind. No, they kind of clung to the idea that, you know, Judaism is the one true religion, and anybody, or Zionism, sorry, Zionistic Judaism is the only faith that should be allowed. And, you know, that's what they try and tie it to, right? It's irresponsible, but, you know, people are seeing it, and their abhorrences are coming to light, and I think their supporters support out of hate.
So why do you think Cyrus was Dhul-Qarnayn? How do you create those ties? Knowing the story of how he went to a region, perhaps you can narrate the story as you're telling any factual connections.
Well, see, the fact that he was mentioned explicitly by name in earlier monotheistic traditions is very compelling, right? That is... I don't know, man. Like, that by name is kind of crazy, right? By name. And then to mention that he's not Jewish either. So it's weird for a monotheistic tradition to honor another monotheistic tradition. A king from another monotheistic tradition was honored in the Old Testament, which is the Jewish Bible, the Zabur. Right? So that in and of itself is something that shouldn't have happened, yet it did. So it's a testification to what his character, right? That despite him being from a different monotheistic tradition, he spoke with respect. He dealt with the Jewish people with respect. He let them rebuild their temple. He let them practice as they wanted to, as they needed to, and as they were instructed to, right? That level of religious tolerance was unprecedented in his time. And we've confirmed this through archaeological evidence. You look at the Cyrus cylinder, it is the earliest declaration of human rights.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, you look at one person, Alexander, who conquered the world with, you know, just asserting himself, making people, like, forcing people to accept him, right? Coercing people to accept him. And then the other person, Cyrus, who conquered passively through policy reform, said that we should all be one, right? That we should make a big nation, that everybody should be allowed to practice their form of monotheism where they are. Also, there's a depiction, there's a lot of evidence that point to Cyrus being Dhul-Qarnayn. But anyway, and you can see it on that website, www.whoisdqnayn.com. You can just add that in the link while I'm saying that. But yeah, another piece of evidence is the name Dhul-Qarnayn literally means possessor of two horns, or the two-horned one, right? And there's a depiction of Cyrus the Great, not by him, by the way. Like, he didn't commission it himself because he didn't believe in statues. He didn't believe in deifying himself. There's no portraits of him, bro. Did I show you his tomb? His tomb is just a simple, like, one floor, like, tomb. He was the king of Persia, bro. Persia was known as the land of gold. You would expect a king like him to be propped up somewhere in, like, a gold tower, bro. But no, he took... There isn't even, like, an inscription on it. It doesn't even say his name, right? You think about a king like that. A king. We're not talking about a normal person. A king. And then a king like Alexander, who forced people to kneel to him in court, who wanted to deify himself, who was exceedingly debaucherous, right? I can go on.
So the two horned one, is that metaphorical, or is that
so
literal?
sorry, but there's that drawing of him, or not, sorry, drawing. It's like a big rock with, like, his engraving in it, right? Like a pretty much like a sculpture of him.
Okay.
And it depicts him
No
with
way.
2 horns. Yeah.
No way.
Yes. Yeah. And you can, I'll send you a picture. You can prop this up on the screen too.
Yeah.
But it's in Pasargad, which is, by the way, where he's buried, right? So all of these factors about his character as a king, right? It just points to him being like in that discussion, in that it clearly is him when you bifurcate, right?
Right.
You disqualify Alexander for these reasons, and then you land on Cyrus.
Okay. We talked about the character element of it, but let's go to the story element of it, and perhaps later you can intertwine the geographical element of it as well. And I think it both goes hand in hand. So can you talk about the Quranic story of
Yeah.
Dhul-Qarnayn and Gog and Magog,
Yeah. So
and make ties to perhaps Cyrus the Great?
yeah. So and like there are archaeological connections too. So you look at the Quranic excerpts. He went east, right, to oh sorry, no, it starts off first with he went west to a land of marshes, right, which is Turkey. If you look at the Achaemenid Empire, Cyrus conquered what was Lydia, or present-day Turkey, and the west side of Turkey is full of just marshes. That's where the shore is. That's one thing. Then he went east. If you go directly from Sinope, or what was, Lydia, you go directly east, you'll hit Azerbaijan. And there it says that he came across people who had no shelter from the sun. Now, how is that possible? It has to be a mountainous region, okay? A mountainous region that doesn't have any trees. And then you look at Azerbaijan and that region in general, Georgia, it is genuinely mountainous, it's rocky, and there's no trees. The sun, when it hits there, it's there in full force, right? And there, he encountered a community that he couldn't understand. Now, this doesn't mean that they were stupid. I don't know why some people, when they read this part of the Quran, they think like this was a stupid community that they had to, like, they just couldn't communicate verbally. No, they could communicate, they just spoke different languages. And this is like noted in history that Cyrus went to this region of Azerbaijan and he communicated with a Lesghian tribe. Conveniently, this same community was dealing with the Scythians, the Isodenes, and the Massagetæ. Now, these two groups were known for horrible things. Like, I'm talking about like communal wives. I'm talking about like killing the old and the sick, eating them, consuming their flesh, so only like the strong, prosper, etc. Just horrible things, right?
Which communities?
This is the Scythian tribes.
Okay.
They're called the Massagetæ and the Isodenes. So Scythians, not all of them were bad, but the ones that were Scythians. So it's kind of like an umbrella. So like not all Scythians are Massagetæ or Isodenes, but the Isodenes and the Massagetæ are Scythians. You get what I'm trying to say? So they're tribes, they're Scythian tribes, but not all Scythians were, Isodenes or Massagetæ.
So let's first narrate the Quranic version and then tie it down to Cyrus.
Yeah, well,
what was the Quranic story that there was Dhul-Qarnayn who was traveling towards east and they encountered people he could not understand, and those people were at that time dealing with extremely violent people.
Yeah, the Gog and Magog, Yajuj and Majuj, and they instructed him, or they asked him, like, please correct their ways, or deal with them. And they offered, tribute. They said, we'll give you gold, we'll give you whatever you want. And he said, what my Lord has offered me is better than what you have to offer me. So he gathered sheets of iron and I think copper, molten copper, and poured it over the sheets of iron, and that's how the wall was made. Now, I want to say that I don't think a wall is like an actual dam, okay? Because you can go over that. It says specifically in the Quran that they couldn't penetrate it, nor could they scale it, okay? It doesn't matter how big it is, it would eventually be scaled, okay? So that goes to tell you it's probably like a cave or something, right? And this was the discussion we were having about Yajuj and Majuj being underground, right?
Interesting.
Yeah, so this, and also this is another bit of information, but these same Scythian tribes were known for living in caves.
Interesting. That's
So
very
right, like
interesting.
yeah.
It's very interesting. Yeah.
So, you know,
There's one more
he kind
tradition.
of
There was one more tradition that they're going to be extremely a lot of numbers.
yeah, and well, that's like that goes into their culture of procreation, right, where they don't have any boundaries, any sexual boundaries, right, where everything is fair game. Like it's disgusting, right? Like your sister, like people, they're like, it's just disgusting stuff. Like men fornicating with their own family members, women fornicating with their own family members, and then having open fornication with just anybody, and then there's this constant like killing and consuming of the children, because the ones that aren't strong, they get consumed, and the ones that are consume the weaker ones, right? So it's just a constant battle, and this is going to be an issue because they're going to be very strong, right? Obviously, you keep doing this over time, your epigenetics, or sorry, not epigenetics, but your DNA is it's gonna kind of get structured in a way where all of these guys are just fucking hunks of fucking meat, pale completely from no sun, right? Underground, limited space, short motherfuckers, just methane synthesizing in their gut from living in a low oxygen environment where the game is what insects and other humans.
So they were cannibals in a way, possibly.
Yes, yeah. And this is documented historically that these Scythian tribes were cannibalistic.
No way.
Yes.
Interesting.
Bro, you have to read that. It's all on that website.
Yeah.
But all of these connections, right?
You mentioned that perhaps living in the cave in a low oxygen environment, their metabolic processes are producing methane,
Yeah.
and because of that, that specific region is known for a lot of methane.
So there's a lot of what, like, forever fires, right? Everlasting flames that keep burning, and they're from gas deposits. Now these gas deposits mostly are methane in that region, right? And methane is a biosignature, right? Yes, it can be produced by like geological processes, but not in the quantities that are underground in that region. In that region is just absurd. Like those fires have been burning forever,
Which
and they're
region-
going to continue burning.
which region is
Azerbaijan, and
I
it's
see.
known as the land of ancient fires,
I see.
right? And oh, this is another thing. So in that same region, in Azerbaijan, there's a place that goes back to 500 or so BC called Kurush. Now, this is significant because Cyrus in Persian is Kurush. So that city or that little village is named after him. Now you think about why a village near Georgia is named Cyrus. Cyrus is Persian. He's from Iran. Right? Why pay this much tribute to a king so far away? Right? And then also we know that they liked him because they fought for him. They fought against Alexander the Great's forces when he came to like that region. The Darial Gorge, Azerbaijan, Mount Shadog, that same region.
So you think Cyrus built a wall off a cave that prevented them from coming out, and they've been
Yep.
inside since,
Yep.
and they're going to be revealed when Allah wills.
Yeah. When they say inshallah, right? That's when the wall is going to start crumbling down. And honestly, I think the only way a force like that would be able to survive is in nuclear winter.
Interesting. How?
So like you think about being deprived of the sun, right? Living underground for so long, you can only tolerate like, well, you can't tolerate UV lights at all. That would be like a shock to your system, right? If you were underground living with no light for what, three or four millennia, 3 or 4,000 years, like you're, you know, that's enough time for you to evolve pretty significantly, right? So you can imagine them having like really, really black eyes to absorb every bit of light underground. You know, short but robust bodies. Short because they're living underground. There's not much space in tunnels, I'd imagine. And, you know, just constantly controlling the populace, eating the weak, eating the sick, means that only the strong survive. And there's a warrior culture, right? Where only the strong survive. And we know they're not gonna, you know, become diplomats down there. We know, yeah, like, you know, they're not gonna come out and be like, oh yeah, we're ready to, you know, negotiate terms. No, they're gonna fucking like stab you in your guts and like eat your liver. Is probably what they're gonna do, right? And you read about like what's written in the Quran, like what's meant to happen to them, right? Like how we're going to be taken to the mountains, right? Like why?
Jesus Christ is going to take us to the mountains.
Isa is going to take us to why, right? Like why a mountain, right? Like why are we not safe anywhere under Isa alayhi salam, right? Why is it specifically that we go to a mountain? Well, mountains are one, cold, two, UV, right? During the day, they won't be able to come up because of the sun. And at night, it's going to be too cold for them. Underground is what? It's hot. Especially if you go deep underground, it's hot as shit. The closer you get to the Earth's core, you know, the hotter it gets, right? So they're probably acclimatized to hot environments. They can't take the cold. Now, nuclear winter, they could survive because the temperature would be somewhat reasonable because they're not on like a mountain where it's colder. And there's no sunlight, right? Because of the fallout. So they'd be okay. And you think about it with this paradigm, but it's written that a worm is going to enter their necks and kill them. What does that sound like? It sounds like a virus, right? So they...
Is that prophesized?
Yeah, that a worm is going to go into their necks. But obviously, like, you can't assume it's a literal worm, right? A worm could mean like a virus. Yeah. But do you think about it like that? They haven't been exposed to surface bacteria or viruses in 4 millennia, right? That would just decimate them. You know, you got to think about the civilizations we know of today that don't communicate with contemporary humans or humanity or civilization, right? Like North Sentinel Island, for example. They don't associate with normal civilization, right? And when people tried, or, you know, when they tried to bring somebody over from the island, bro, they fucking got sick and died in a few days, right? And they're surface dwellers. They've just been away from civilization for so long that they have no immunity to anything that we encounter. And like this is kind of points to the possibility. You think about like Derinkuyu, which was a city in Turkey underground. It was large enough to house 20,000 people for years. Derinkuyu.
A city underground?
Yes.
What time period?
This was thousands of years ago. Yeah, but it's an example, right? It's to show you that it's not like it's impossible for a civilization to thrive underground. No, I think it is possible. Now, am I saying people live underground? No.
It's all theory.
But it's possible.
And it's
look, it's speculation, right?
It's
And
theory, yeah.
yeah, and these are just thoughts that you should entertain if you're trying to have a theological discussion. But you want to obviously make sense of what's written and not just take it face value. And it goes back to my whole point of, ignoring who Dhul-Qarnayn's identity is just because it's not explicitly written in the Quran, right? I think that's just intellectually lazy.
Yeah.
Alexander the Great was a fraud. Cyrus the Great is the real Dhul-Qarnayn. Alexander the Great was a puppet of Israel. And Israel, to date, props him up. That's why students learn about Alexander the Great and not Cyrus the Great.